Japan, 1500 AD. The walls of the castle glowed pale yellow before the face of the setting sun, with blue shingles sparkling on stacks of curved roofs. This radiance conferred the semblance of a tall gold crown encrusted with lapis lazuli gems. The castle sat atop a wooded hill, overlooking the fields, forests, and scattered peasants' villages like an emperor surveying his rural domain. A young woman hiked a series of stone steps that zigzagged up the hill's northern slope, cradling a yew chest in her arms. Her hooded, waist-length kimono and trousers, both dull green like the trees sheltering the path, protected her both from the evening's damp chill and from any eyes spying at her. Not that the woman had noticed anyone giving her a second glance so far, but nobody in our line of work could afford to let their guard down. She reached the summit of the hill, strolled across the short bridge over the castle's moat, and paused to graze over the sprawling countryside. The verdant beauty of the Japanese landscape would never leave her eyes entirely, yet years of experience had scraped away much of its allure. She knew that underneath its lush and tranquil veneer lay a cutthroat and lawless world of cruelty and treachery. This would be her last evening in the land. The next day she would set sail for civilization. Among the irregular mass of rocks building up the castle's base was a rectangular slab, as tall and wide as a man. The woman inserted her fingers along its edge and pushed it aside as if it were a regular sliding door. Ahead ran a narrow corridor, lit with paper lanterns hanging from the ceiling, a small courtesy she had not expected. Underneath the more pleasing scent of the cherry blossoms, the stink of dead flesh leaked through the chest lid. The woman hugged it against her breast, a queasy nausea swelling in her stomach. Grisly as the order was, it was only part of the price she had to pay for her upcoming escape. She followed the passageway through the base until it led to a series of rooms, the walls built of white paper with wooden frames, a building material she had always thought strange. Back in her native Alodia, along the Nile to the south of Egypt, people built almost everything from sturdier materials such as mud brick or stone. For a race that constantly warred with her own, the Japanese could have stood to fortify the interiors of their homes better. After sliding open a succession of paper doors, the woman found the daimyo Takeshi awaiting her in the study. She greeted him with a bow of her head while laying the chest before the tatami mat he sat on. "I see you have already had the way lighted for me, my lord," the woman said. She pulled down her hood to reveal her dark brown face and braided black hair. "Very kind of you." "I have good timing," the old daimyo croaked a chuckle as he laid his hands on the chest. "I trust this is Hiroshi himself." The woman nodded as she unslung her bow and quiver. "I took him out in the dead of night. Nobody suspected a single thing. Suffice to say, he won't trouble you any more." Takeshi pried the chest open, releasing the stench of its contents in full wave. Inside lay the half-rotten head of Hiroshi, once his vassal. The daimyo's cackling made the woman feel even more sick than the morbid object. "Excellent work, Maia of Alodia," he said. "I see you more than deserve your reputation." "I've had a lot of practice, my lord." Maia glanced around the study for a bag of coins, yet she could find none. The only good she detected in the room was the paint on some serpentine dragon illustrations on the walls. "Now, where is my payment?" The daimyo's smile vanished. He pulled a curved scabbard from his belt and slid out the katana sword within. You didn't really think I would let you go with my vassal's blood on your hands, did you?" Maia's pulse kicked into a thumping panic. She held her bow close to her. "Why not? None of the other daimyo I've served had the problem with that." "Then they were fools. Think, Alodia, of what would happen were you to blurt out the truth in whatever circumstance. The world would know I was behind this all, and that I'd have even more insolent subjects to contend with than before." "Then perhaps you shouldn't pay anyone to take out your critics, O daimyo." Takeshi stood and drew back his sword, his once pale yellow-brown face flaming red. "Unless I can take you out in turn." Maia ducked beneath the slicing sweep of his katana, dodging it by less than an inch. She hopped around across the room and swung her bow at him as if it were a sword. Its bottom tip slashed across the back of the daimyo's blue silken vest. Despite not drawing blood, he fell over with a yelp and a groan, his sword flying out of his grip and rolling over the floor until Maia picked it up. Maia strutted over to where he lay and pressed the tip of his katana into the nape of his neck. "I could easily kill you as I killed your vassal daimyo Takeshi, but I'll give you one more chance than you gave him. Pay me the gold you promised and I'll leave your hide unscratched." "Never!" Takeshi swept his arm aside and banged into Maia's ankle, tripping her. He snatched his sword back into a springing leap. I still have traps to cover up. After wheeling away from his next few attacks, the Elodian shot her foot into his skin. He growled a hideous curse and repaid the blow by slashing across her hip. The cut burned hot through the flesh of her leg. Her rage blazed so much harder that it drowned out all pain. Again the daimyo charged, brandishing his blade with a bloodthirsty roar. Maia sidestepped and swatted him in the skull from behind, throwing him across the room until he crashed to the wall, tore through the paper, and splintered the framing. From a leather sheath under her belt, she grabbed a curved dagger and flung it into his spine. After one last guttural croak, the daimyo Takeshi lay without movement other than the blood flowing out of his wounds. Sending across into the air, Maia whispered a prayer that her God saw mercy on the poor sinner's soul. "How could you?" A young woman in a scarlet kimono burst into the study, her hair tousled and her face wet with tears. She knelt sobbing by the daimyo's body. "I'm sorry, was he your father?" Maia asked. She lowered her hand to touch the other woman's shoulder in consolation. "No, I was his beloved wife, Ichiko." The Japanese girl slapped the Elodian away and tore the katana out of her fallen husband's grip. "Now you will pay for your crime, barbarian bitch." Yanking the dagger out of Takeshi, Maia thrust it to parry Ichiko. Sparks erupted to the clashing of blades until the Elodian's small weapon broke in half. She lunged to stab her opponent's thigh, but Ichiko kicked her to the room's opposite wall. Maia had carried half her dagger, and the daimyo's widows showed just as much agility. Maia carried only one weapon that would give her any advantage in the fight, the one she had used on the vassal Hiroshi. What she needed was more space between her and her target. After chucking a stick of shattered wood into Ichiko's face, Maia scrambled to retrieve her bow and quiver. She hurled herself through the hole, over the daimyo Takeshi's body. She had an arrow drawn the instant Ichiko launched herself into the air. Katana raised overhead for a downward cleave. Maia fired. Ichiko fell in mid-arc over onto Takeshi. The arrow through her heart, seeming to pin her onto her husband's corpse, uniting them in death as in life. It was a bittersweet way for them to go, Maya admitted to herself. Through her labored breathing, she heard the shrill wailing of an infant. Hurrying out of the study, the Alodian stumbled into a room where three flat cushions rested like low beds on the floor. The first two were adult size for the daimyo and his wife. The third was only big enough to support the naked, wailing baby that lay curled into a ball on it, bawling with frightened distress. Throughout her career, Maia of Alodia had taken many lives. Some were daimyo rival to the ones who paid her, whereas others were insubordinate vassals like the one she had taken at Takeshi's behest. Still others had been guards and soldiers she fitted off when her missions went sour. It was her way of earning what she needed to survive in such a ruthless country. Never had she imagined she would feel guilt or remorse until she saw the tears glistening on the baby's face. He had no mother or father anymore, no one left to comfort or protect him. Instead, he lost them to the cold bite of steel, much as Maia had lost her own mother and father when she was a girl. This time, though, Maia's own steel had robbed him of his family. She could not leave him there. Either he would die young in this merciless land, or would grow up forever ablaze with hatred for her and perhaps all the people of Alodia. Maia could not blame him one bit for that. She had to make it up to him, to give him what she had taken from him. Maia picked up the baby in a firm embrace, murmuring soft words to soothe him. "I shall name you Isaac, sweet one. Don't cry. You shall be safe with me." The castle of the late daimyo Takeshi, once a brilliant pale yellow, turned a luminous white before the moon and stars. Down the hillside steps Maia descended, holding the sleeping Isaac under one arm while hauling the yew chest in another. Instead of a human head rolling within it, the chest now jingled with plundered gold coins, more than enough to buy Maia a sailing trip away from this beautiful yet deadly land. Where could she go next? She didn't know. Her family had fled Alodia when it fell under attack by the Muslim Funj, and doubtless they would have taken the kingdom over and replaced its Christian religion with their own. Perhaps Ethiopia, another African kingdom still faithful to the same god as Alodia, would offer sanctuary. Or maybe Maia could sate her appetite for adventure for elsewhere in the east, perhaps the jungle kingdoms to the south or the steppes to the north. Even the Empire of China might hold promise, as they enjoy more unity than the Japanese. Wherever Maia went, she would carry Isaac with her. She would nurse him, raise him as her own, and teach him how to shoot arrows like a true Alodian.